Trust, the invisible currency of an entire civilization. The silent agreement that the man in the uniform is who he says he is. This was the bedrock of the 1960s, an era painted in bold optimism, where appearances weren't just important, they were everything. Authority wasn't questioned, it was revered. A crisp suit, a confident smile, a piece of paper with the right letterhead. These were keys. These weren't just symbols, they were gateways. To money, to access, to a life lived above the clouds, both literally and figuratively. The system ran on paper promises, checks, credentials, diplomas, all taken at face value in a world not yet wired for instant verification. This was the societal contract. You played your part, you wore the costume, and the world accepted your role without a second glance. A world so blissfully unaware of its own vulnerabilities. Each handshake, each accepted document, was a thread in a tapestry of unspoken faith. Every system has its loopholes, its back doors, and this grand theater of trust had a stage door that was left wide open. It wasn't a flaw that could be patched with new rules. It was a flaw in human psychology itself, the deep-seated desire to believe. We see the uniform, not the person. We see the diploma, not the knowledge. We are wired to take cognitive shortcuts, and in this age of innocence, those shortcuts were superhighways. Entire identities could be constructed from little more than confidence and a well-chosen wardrobe. The world wasn't just the stage, it was the mark. An entire society so confident in its foundations, it never thought to check for cracks. It was a system ripe for the taking, not with a gun, not with violence, but with something far more potent, a story. All it needed was an architect, someone who saw the world not as a set of rules, but as a collection of scripts to be rewritten. And from the unassuming backdrop of suburban America, just such an architect was about to make his entrance onto the world stage. The architect of this grand deception wasn't forged in shadow, but in the bright, manicured promise of New Rochelle, New York. His name was Frank William Abagnale Jr. He idolized his father, a sharp local figure who taught him life's first lesson. Perception is reality. His father was his hero, a man who seemed to glide through the world on charm, but the perfect picture was a clever forgery. The family's fortunes dissolved. His parents' marriage followed, forcing a 16-year-old boy into the cold, sterile light of a family courtroom. A judge asked the impossible question, who do you choose to live with? But for Frank, the choice was not between two parents. It was between two broken worlds. So he chose a third option. He chose to disappear, bolting from the courtroom into the anonymity of the city. With just a few $100s in his pocket, he was now a ghost, a runaway with a boy's face in a man's world. He quickly learned a harsh lesson. His youthful appearance was a cage, locking him out of decent jobs and marking him as prey. Survival demanded creativity. He began small, altering his driver's license to make himself 10 years older. A simple lie, but a powerful one. Then came the checks. At first, simple confidence scams, kiting bad checks for cash. He was learning the language of financial deception. But this was still small time. He was reacting, surviving. The grand vision, the masterpiece of his life's work, came from a chance observation. He saw them, Pan Am pilots striding through a hotel lobby, radiating a kind of casual divinity. They didn't walk, they held court. Women adored them, men respected them, and businesses cashed their checks without a single question. It was a revelation. The uniform wasn't just clothing, it was a cloak of instant authority, a passport to a different reality, the ultimate cognitive shortcut. He didn't need to know how to fly a 707. He just needed the world to believe he could. The performance was about to begin. A performance needs more than just an actor. It needs a costume. And Frank's first move was a masterstroke of social engineering. He called Pan Am's purchasing department, claiming he was a pilot who had lost his uniform. A simple lie delivered with unshakable confidence. The uniform was a start, but the real key was the ID card, the pocket-sized symbol of belonging, the ultimate passkey. In a pre-hologram world, he simply soaked the logo off a model airplane kit, mounted it on a fake ID, and sealed it inside a plastic sleeve. But a costume and a prop do not make a character. To be a pilot, he had to speak the language of the sky. So he invented another character, a high school reporter. His subject, a real airline pilot, ready to spill all his trade secrets. He learned about deadheading, flight hours, and the delicate politics between pilots and co-pilots. He was building his vocabulary of deception. With his identity now airborne, he turned to the engine of his enterprise, the art of the fraudulent check. This would be his masterpiece. He studied paperweights, watermarks, and printing techniques. He learned that every bank check had a secret language encoded in magnetic ink. This was the routing number, the check's digital fingerprint. He realized if he could change this number, he could send a check on a journey. His motel room transformed into a forger's laboratory. A small industrial printing press was his most prized possession. He sourced the perfect paper, mixed inks to match Pan Am's exact shade of blue, and created flawless printing plates of their iconic logo. He didn't just copy a Pan Am payroll check, he perfected it. His forgeries were often cleaner and more convincing than the real thing. Finally, the most critical component, the character. The props were useless without the unshakable confidence of the man who wore them. The tools were forged. The character was rehearsed. The world was now a stage, and every bank, airport, and hotel was a box office waiting to open. And so it began. Captain Frank Roberts of Pan American World Airways stepped into his new office, the American Airport Terminal. The effect of the uniform was immediate, almost magical. Doors opened, rules bent, and suspicion evaporated like morning mist. He never needed a ticket. He didn't have to. Using the industry practice of deadheading, he simply asked for a ride in the cockpit. With a vocabulary of jargon and a backstory of pure fiction, he convinced veteran pilots he was one of them. A colleague, not an impostor. The uniform was now a key to the entire world. He flew over 1 million miles, touching down in 26 countries, all on Pan Am's dime. And with the world as his playground, he began the real work, cashing the beautifully forged payroll checks he had so carefully crafted. He'd walk into a bank, often with a flock of beautiful flight attendants he'd befriended, creating the perfect diversion. The teller saw the uniform, the entourage, the flawless check. They never saw the crime. They saw a VIP in need of a quick transaction. But why be one person when you can be anyone? In Georgia, tired of flying, he simply became a doctor. He forged a Harvard medical degree and landed a job as a hospital supervisor. He let his interns handle the real medical work. Incredibly, he then set his sights on the law. He forged a transcript from Harvard Law and prepared for the Louisiana bar exam. After 8 weeks of study and 2 failures, he actually passed. Frank Abagnale, the impostor, was now a licensed attorney. He was a phantom of the opera, playing every role. A pilot in the sky, a doctor on the ward, a lawyer in the courts. And the money flowed like champagne at a wedding. He bought Savile Row suits, drove an Aston Martin, and dated beautiful women. From ages 16 to 21, he cashed over $2.5 million in fraudulent checks. A teenage runaway, holding the world's institutions hostage with a fountain pen and a smile. But a performance this grand, this loud, always attracts an audience, and someone in law enforcement was beginning to take notice. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. In a drab, smoke-filled FBI office, that reaction had a name: Agent Shea. Shea was Frank's polar opposite, a grinder, a by-the-book agent who didn't believe in charm. He believed in evidence. While Frank lived in a world of color and fantasy, Shea inhabited a world of black and white, a world of facts, files, and paper trails. He saw the signatures, the routing numbers, the sheer volume of fraudulent checks piling up from every corner of the country. He began connecting the dots, realizing this wasn't a scattered group of criminals. This was the work of one brilliant, audacious artist. The Bureau had a name for their ghost, a phantom who moved through airports with impunity. They called him the Skywayman. The chase began in earnest. Shea, armed with little more than a forged check and a hunch, started closing the distance. He nearly had him in a hotel lobby. Shea recognized him from a witness description, but Frank's mind worked faster than any arrest warrant. Frank turned, flashed a wallet with another fake ID, and identified himself as a fellow agent on the same case. A lie so bold it was believable. He walked away, leaving Shea standing flat-footed. The Skywayman had vanished again, but the young prodigy was getting careless. He made a mistake, a small one. He grew fond of an alias, Frank Taylor, leaving a breadcrumb that didn't dissolve with the morning news. For a bloodhound like Shea, a breadcrumb was a banquet. He finally had a trail, and the full weight of the bureau came with him. The game was changing. Frank could feel the net tightening. The high life began to feel less like a party and more like a gilded cage. He fled to Europe, hoping to outrun the G-Man's reach. He cashed checks in France, believing he was finally safe across the ocean. But Shea's investigation was now global. He alerted Interpol. For the first time, the young architect of deception was no longer writing the script. He was just a character, running out of pages. In a small printing shop in Montpellier, France, the performance finally ended. Not with a chase, but with a quiet tap on the shoulder. The French authorities had been tipped off by a former girlfriend. The charm that had opened so many doors had finally closed, one for good. He was sent to Pérignon prison, a medieval house of horrors dating back centuries. This was not a jail. It was a tomb for the living. The glamour of Pan Am was replaced by a lightless 6-by-6-foot stone cell. His companions were filth, rats, and despair. He was stripped of his clothes, his name, his identity. For 6 months, the master of reinvention was not allowed to be a person at all. He nearly died there, but the world wasn't done with him. He was a parcel of stolen goods, extradited first to Sweden for his crimes there. After another year in a Swedish prison, his passport of lies was finally stamped for one last destination: home, back to the United States. On that flight, he finally came face to face with his pursuer, Agent Shea. The great chase between the G-Man and the Skywayman was over. He was sentenced to 12 years in a federal penitentiary. The curtain had fallen, and the bill for his performance had come due. His crimes had cost banks and airlines millions. But the deeper cost was to the invisible currency of trust, the system he had so expertly gamed. But while Frank was locked away, the world kept spinning, and the FBI had a growing problem that they couldn't solve: rampant, evolving check fraud. They were losing the arms race against the forgers, and they realized their greatest adversary could be their greatest weapon. Frank identified the forgery's flaws instantly. In that moment, an idea was born. An offer was made. The poacher would turn gamekeeper. The deal: released from prison in exchange for working, unpaid, with the FBI's check fraud division. It was a new kind of cage, but it came with a door. He had seen the world, lived a dozen lives, and pulled off the con of the century. But the price of that ticket was 5 years in hell and the forfeiture of his entire youth. But one question remained: how? How did a boy with a high school education fool them all? So we arrive at the ultimate question: how? How did a teenage boy with a high school education defeat the most powerful institutions on Earth? The answer is simpler and more profound than you think. It wasn't the quality of the ink, the cut of the uniform, or the acting. It was a single psychological principle: the tell. The secret was this: reality is negotiable, and the person who acts first does the negotiating. Frank didn't wait to be questioned. He didn't react to suspicion. He was proactive. He created a reality so bold, it overwhelmed doubt. This is the Audacity principle. He understood that people are inherently non-confrontational. We are socially conditioned to avoid awkwardness. To challenge someone who acts like they belong is to risk a scene, to risk being wrong. It's easier and safer to simply believe. Think back. In the bank, he didn't just pass a check. He initiated the conversation, asked about the teller's day, controlled the entire interaction. When the FBI cornered him, he didn't shrink or flee. He advanced on the threat, seizing control and flipping the script. He was a social engineer of the highest order. He wasn't selling a lie. He was selling a feeling of comfort and certainty. This is the powerful, unsettling secret he now teaches to the world's top corporations and law enforcement agencies. He teaches them to look beyond the credentials, past the paperwork, and to spot the performance. To ask the one question the audacious con man never wants to hear. Frank Abagnale, the runaway boy from New Rochelle, became the world's most unlikely authority on security, trust, and deception. He repaid every dollar he stole, served his time, and built a new life. Not on lies, but on the lessons learned from them. His story is a paradox, a cautionary tale about the dangers of deception, and a masterclass in the art of confidence. It serves as a timeless, unsettling reminder. The most secure systems in the world are only as strong as the human beings who operate them.